guys, in today's video I wanted to have a go at making a sugar plum fairy cake. Now for this one, to make the doll, I am going to use my mould to make it a little bit easier for me rather than freehand modelling it all. So I'm going to start by making some buttercream, and I'm going to use some raspberry ripple flavour icing sugar. And for the colour, I've added some burgundy colour mill. I will put links below the video to everything that I've used as well, guys. Now for the cake itself, for the dress part, you can use a ball-shaped tin or a half-sphere tin. You can do it in whatever size you want as well, really, guys. The 6-inch one fits quite nicely. And this is an example of one that I'd made before, but we're going to do a different colour for this one. So I've gone for chocolate cake, and I've just sliced it into pieces or layers. Now I've stuck it onto the masonette board. So the board underneath is a pre-patterned one so that I don't really have to do any decoration on it. And we're just going to layer it up with this buttercream filling. So I'm not putting in too much between each layer just because I don't want the shape of the cake to change too much. Then I'm going to cover the whole thing in buttercream on the outer edges. Just going to pop it on my turntable now because I'm going to need to scrape it a little bit to smooth it off. So I'm using a flexible smoother. Just makes things a little bit easier for me so I can bend it around the shape of that curve. Okay, so we've got a layer. It's fairly thin, but I'm going to pop that in the fridge, let it firm up, and then we're going to add a second layer. So to create the doll, I'm going to use a mould. Now you can actually just stick a doll in if you want, guys, but a mould means I can make it out of icing so it can be fully edible. I'm not going to need the leg part. And I'm going to use some Saracino modelling paste, which is soft enough when it sets to still eat. And I'm mixing the brown modelling paste with some pale skin tone one, about even, about half and half, just to get the colour that I want for her skin. And I'm going to push it deep into the mould. Now I've got way more than I need for this. Now I do actually have different videos, guys, on using these moulds, so I haven't gone into detail in this one, but I do have other videos. In fact, I'll put links up in the corner of the screen to using this particular mould in more detail. So she should have a nose if you've pulled it out right. The nose is small, so you do have to press quite firmly. And then I'm just going to dip in a little bit with a modelling tool into the corners of her cheeks just to make her look a little bit smilier. And I'm going to add some dimples. And then we're going to fill the other pieces of the mould, so the body and the arms. Now keep the pieces nice and thin, so push nice and deep into the mould, trying to keep it level with the top of the mould. And you're going to have to let those firm up just a little bit before we use them. So I'll put them to one side, and then we'll put our second layer of icing on the cake. So I'm going to go fairly thickly with this. And my plan was originally to smooth it out really smooth, but I think that because she's a sugar plum fairy, I thought it might look quite nice if it was kind of sugar effecty and all cake-like. So I'm just putting a swirl in there with my palette knife instead of going really smooth. Then what I'm going to do is just finish off decoration on her skirt part, or on her dress, with some sprinkles. So I'm pushing the big ones in individually, and then I'm going to sprinkle some smaller ones on there too. Then I'm going to remove the moulds. They've had time to firm up but not fully set. So I'm just tilting the neck and the body a little bit there. I've just cut off a tiny bit off the bottom of the body. I'm going to cut a tiny bit off the top of the head. I'm going to push a cocktail stick through. You can use a bigger skewer if you want that, guys. And then a head's going to sit on there as well. Now, I am actually going to remove the head again in a minute because I decided it was easier to do it separate. But originally, I'd squished the head on, making one nice firm piece. And then I realised it was going to be easier for me to do it in two parts. So I'm sticking buttercream onto her body because I want to stick sprinkles on there. Now, you can use edible glue if you find that easier. I just thought the buttercream's here, I might as well use it. It's quite difficult putting it on with a paintbrush, but this is where it was easier to just remove the head. So then I'm going to dunk it into my sprinkles, mainly the smaller ones because the big ones struggled to stick to the body. Then I'm going to push that into the top of the cake. So you do need to push it in deep enough that it will stay in place. And let's work on the head. So I'm going to go for pixie ears. So we're going for teardrop shapes, slightly flattened, and then we're going to put a little line across sort of the top part of each one. And we're going to just stick these onto the side of the head. You can use edible glue or a touch of water. Give them a good firm press in place. Then what we're going to do is just add a bit of blush, and I've got a bit of red edible powder. And we're just putting that on her cheeks and the tips of her ears. I'm going to use an edible pen to colour in the lips. So pink one for this. I'm going to give her some freckles, but actually in a white pen. I figured because she was a fairy, it doesn't have to be natural, realistic colours. And I quite like the white freckles on her. I'm just adding a touch to the lips and blending it with a bit more pink, just so that lips look kind of shinier and a bit more highlighted. And then we're going to do some pink and white eyebrows. I decided on pink at first, and I decided they didn't really show enough, so that's why I went over with white. I'm going to put a line of black at the bottom edge of the eye. So she's going to have closed eyes, not open eyes, these ones. So the eyelashes sit on the bottom, like so. So for hair, I'm thinking maybe candy floss. So I'm just having a little play around with the candy floss to see if it will sit on her hair or on her head. I'm going to leave that for a bit because the candy floss is going to disintegrate or dissolve when in the air pretty quickly. So if you do decide on candy floss, do it at the very end, just before you're going to serve her. So I'm just neatening up those arms that I've pulled out of the mould. Just putting a little cut in the thumb part. And then we're going to stick these onto the body. So I'm just using a bit of water at the top of the arm. Give it a good squeeze onto that body. Just be careful you don't knock the body about too much that it comes out of the cake. And then I'm going to actually give her some eyeshadow. I was going to leave her without, but I think some eyeshadow would be nice. I'm putting a little bit of pink pen on in sort of the top crease of the eyelids, and then I'm going to add powder to it as well. So I'm using my powder palettes, and these are edible dusts in these as well, guys. Go for whatever colours you want. You can just add one colour, or you can use a mix of different colours. You might find the powder sort of sits on that black line that I've put on for the eyelashes, so we might just have to go over that again shortly. So just darkening those eyelashes on the bottom. And then we're going to stick that onto the body. So I've got a bit of the cocktail stick sticking out of her neck that will sit nicely onto. And she's going to have wings as well. So these ones I've got a separate video for, guys. I'm not going to show you how to make the actual wings, but you can obviously have a play around with different shapes and sizes. And you don't have to have as many wings on yours as this. So this was the initial one. I actually made it at Cake International a few weeks ago. And I'll put links to the video for the gelatin wings as well, guys, so you can see that. So once you've made some gelatin wings, you can decorate them however you want. Quite often I find it easy to just use the edible pens on them. And then what you're going to do is bend the wires and push them into the back. And like I say, don't forget to check out the different video for the wings that went up earlier this week. And you're just going to push them into a back. Now I apologise, I got it slightly out of shot, but they just go into that modelling paste that we've got in her body without any problems. Then for the head, I'm going to just add a bit of edible glue onto her head, so the top of her head and the back of her head, and then we're going to use the candy floss. And remember, guys, once this is out in air, it will start to dissolve. So don't do this the day before you need the cake or earlier in the morning for something that you need in the evening. You really want to be adding candy floss just before you're going to serve it. So if you don't want to use candy floss, you can swap it for modelling paste, or you might even want to put buttercream on her hair instead. So I'm just squeezing it on. It does compact together quite a bit as well as the candy floss for the hair. And then you can push in some sprinkles. Now the sprinkles are very difficult to stick into candy floss because you do have to wet them a tiny bit to stick them, but water will dissolve your candy floss, so just be really careful of that. So I've just popped them in her hair like so. So there she is, all finished. Her back maybe could do with just tidying up just a little bit. And just so you guys can see, she's cake inside. That's with all the pink buttercream in the middle. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget to check out the separate video for the wings. And don't forget to check out all my other YouTube videos as well. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.